Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm Reshma Devkaran. I'm with GDIT, and I lead our Department of Commerce, Labor, and Interior Accounts. It's great to be here with all of you to talk about how GDIT has been collaborating with the Department of Commerce and how we're maturing our ServiceNow platform. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to our guest speaker. Brian Bordelon serves as the Deputy CIO for the Office of the CTO at Department of Commerce. He has over 25 years experience in the federal government as a U.S. Marine, as a contractor, and a federal civilian in key roles in IT, finance, acquisition, and strategic planning. As the CTO, Brian is responsible for assessing current and emerging technologies and IT service delivery models, and also develops strategies, implementation, and migration plans for commerce IT portfolios. Most recently, Brian served as the Principal Deputy CIO at the Department of Education, supporting the department's key initiatives for OCIO and leading strategic planning efforts to enhance mission-focused capabilities. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brian Bordelon. So, Brian, I know it's an absolute pleasure to be here with you, and it's great to work with you as well. We've got some serious things to talk about in terms of innovation and optimization. But before we do that, how about a few fun questions so that folks can get to know you?
I love it. I love it.
Okay.
Are we recording this?
Well,
I'll change my answers.
We know what your current role is, but as you were growing up, what was your dream profession?
So I had two. The first one, when I was really young, I wanted to be a dinosaur hunter.
Okay.
Pretty early on, I found out that's not realistic. So I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be an MD like some of my family members. And I learned Latin so I can go to church and understand some things in Rome. A little derivative, no first, second, and third person for agriculture and farm. So when I went to college, my undergrad, gung-ho about being an MD, got a scholarship. I knew what I was going to do. One day I was going to be a surgeon or something along those lines. And this was right around 2001 timeframe, second or third year, and 9/11 hit. Very impactful for me for my entire life. And I said, I'm going to join the Marines. Just flat out join the Marines. And my family was against it, obviously. I'd probably be against my daughter if she decided to do something like that. So I joined the Marines. Didn't look back over those 4 or 5 years. Really enjoyed my time. Got to do a humanitarian effort for Hurricane Katrina. It was interesting. Camaraderie, and then core values of honor, courage, commitment came through. So that really shaped my life. And I got out, and I didn't want to go back to school to be a doctor. So I went back to school. I did some contracts, ended up doing graduate school and going back down the government side of things. Public service has just always been really important to me. And to this day, that is my plan moving forward, to serve the American people in some way with those same values and lead people. Wow, fantastic.
So you ended up in a different profession, but you still are making really great impacts on people's lives. So that's awesome. How about one more? Are you up for it?
Sure thing.
How about superpower? If you could pick one superpower that you could have, what would that be?
So I think if I was young Brian would do something like on the brawn side. I think I'll go something more brainy. And especially times like this, right, is to understand or know what the future is going to behold. Because I don't think any of us know with what we've seen and what's going to happen. So the ability to see what's going to happen around the corners, where we're going to be, whether it's budget, whether it's priorities, whether what the world looks like from a socioeconomic landscape. I think it'd be really important to know that. Now, we don't know that. However, I think every day in our lives, we kind of plan with risk of what may happen. In the military, we call it scenario planning. So we can look at the left and right parameters and say, what if there was a 25% budget cut? What would that look like? FTEs, training, technology, all these different things. How do we build this into our system for risk management? And based on that, what will we do when it happens so we're not caught off guard? So I think you see some of this playing into right now. Now, the parameters are probably a little bit wider as we speak today, but it's the same concept. Things are changing, and how do we leverage that change into opportunity, or how do we better plan for it? Perfect setting, what we heard today and what's happening with AI agents. How do we leverage that to do better, to look at those scenarios and to plan as we build of what we're going to do in the future?
Awesome. Yep, to the future. All right. So let's now change gears a little bit. We'll talk about the present.
Okay.
I'll talk about commerce. I know that efficiency and optimization have been top of mind for us for many years. Can you share a little bit about the driving force behind setting an intentional culture about innovation and optimization?
Sure, and I think we can speak to what ServiceNow, how we leverage ServiceNow and how it came about. So about a decade ago, or I think it was 2017, and forgive me, I'm fairly new to commerce, but not new to the government, but my folks did a great job on prepping me for it. I think 2017, they did a bit of analysis, and they did polls and interviews of some of the challenges we faced across the department. And it came down to some of the basics that we're seeing in every large organization or using a federated model: IT, acquisition, finance, things of that nature that are used across the board aren't being done in enterprise fashion. And that's okay. They don't always have to be. Mission, you don't always get to get down to there. And that's part of the reason why you do have bureaus in several large organizations. So they took that study and they said, well, what can we do, or what actions can we drive based on that? So what we did within OCIO is took that and started doing some analysis and said, hey, what type of capability or process can we put in place to help folks? So they keyed in on several areas, and it was customer experience, operations management, understanding performance metrics, and then mission. Mission, what OCIO does at the enterprise level can never get down to what NOAA or USPTO and some of the other organizations do. We just don't have people as close to home. From a capability side, when you're driving things, is our quality where it needs to be? Do we understand TBM? I'll tell you the answer is, the higher you get, the less visibility you have, and then you don't have the so what or what makes sense when you're trying to make decisions based on that for a large portfolio. So we looked at all those different things and said, what can we do right now? And how do we go about doing it and building adoption across the different bureaus to do so? So in 2018, we worked with ServiceNow and strategic integrators with GDIT to start putting something into place, garnering customer interviews, understanding the infrastructure of what we're using, where the data sets are, and they started building out some applications, right? So we use a little bit of ITSM, some ITAM, some operations management, but again, 13 bureaus, different instances that way. And right now, how it's done isn't as important as what we get to. So as we stood this up, we've been able to formulate some of those different pipes on the IT, the HR side, the acquisition, all those different pieces. And again, it doesn't matter how we're organized because we leverage a matrix model, we do integrated product teams, and it's worked out really well. Saying that, this is one step into where we're going. And to go back to your original point about culture, it's about bringing all the right people together. If we would build something like Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. That doesn't always happen, right? And you might have some sunk costs that nobody adopts. So in the planning process, we want to bring the bureaus together like we did and find out what are those requirements that are being leveraged. And then how do we get the most bang for our buck, or ROI, as part of this? So that's what we did. There's a couple of good solutions. I think that's question 2 or 3, so I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Coming up.
Okay.
No, but that was great. Kind of doing that upfront analysis, getting a baseline, being intentional about the culture, and being focused about how to move forward. Can you give us some examples about those specific areas that we were deliberate about innovating?
Sure. I'm glad you asked. Softball question. So as we talked about some of the challenges that we're facing and what actions we took, we have a few folks in the audience that are from OCIO, the Solution Delivery Group. And they put together something called My Service Hub. My Service Hub is kind of one fits all, key or core type of capabilities that everyone's using. Again, HR, acquisition, IT, finance, management. And you're going to be able to go into those different capabilities that integrate all the data and enhance the quality. So now we're using workflows, just like we heard Coach K and we heard Chris talk about earlier. It's a seamless workflow that you can get from one side to the other, linking to the USA Access and some of the others. It's a seamless way for employees to come in, put documents in, begin the transfer process or the building process. And as they get on, everything's in one place. Whereas in the past, you'd have 5 different people sending you 10 different emails. And then now, we've reduced the number of emails, the number of communications, the clarity, the quality of it, and it's being done quicker. So this was done in a proactive fashion versus the past where paperwork might have gotten lost. And I think you've seen a lot of government entities take on this approach and say, what is centralized within a large department? Again, 13 different bureaus, 50,000 employees. And I'm not saying that we all do it the same way, but we did come around and say, these are some commonalities that we're using, and this is how we're going to leverage that. So that's one piece of it. As we talk about the return to office and what that looks like, some of the workflows built will allow us to say, these are the seating assignments. This is how you can get into this room. These are the conference rooms that are available. So different ways to go about doing that. From the acquisition side, we have purchase cards. So built a workflow for approval where it's nice and easy versus asking your supervisor and then going into the FinOps side of the thing. Now it's one way just to go through where the right people at the right time get the information and can make that decision. And then the bigger piece to all of this is the data is there, the data stays. You can look at trend analysis, and then most importantly, auditability and risk management. So all of that is baked in, and appreciate the support from all the bureaus working together to garner those requirements, and then GDIT and ServiceNow kind of integrating all of that data together.
Yeah, awesome. Well, obviously some really impactful work being done, but the rubber has to meet the road, right? So what are some of the results that were achieved?
I believe they saved almost 10,000 hours of actual work being done. And that was just on a few kind of sample projects that have been done. Obviously, we're going to look further into that. So if you take those 10,000 hours, 5+ FTEs, that's significant, because that means now your mission-focused areas can focus on the mission. We're not necessarily having people in each bureau having to do all these things, or even our team doing that. Now it's automated. We're ensure that the quality of the data is good through feedback loops, and we can iteratively get better. But those 5.5 people, now what are they doing? Well, they can do stuff focused specifically on the mission. If it's USPTO, we could have patent examiners doing it. On the weather side, we could have people focusing on that. Export, import. We have just numerous ways to go about it. And our goal is to find out how to scale this up, right? This was a project done in a small way just for a proof of concept. And we're already starting to work to see how do we build this coalition to find out how people are doing their job. And I think we'll get into scaling later, so I don't want to go into
It's a topic of interest for sure.
Yeah. So generically, what we saved in terms of dollars and people, it's not just a cost savings, it's a cost avoidance. And then you actually gain capacity by having those folks being able to do other things. So that's key. And again, I see this just being the first step of how we understand how to do it, and then we can build this out across the entirety of the department.
Sounds amazing. Let's talk a little bit about the customer, right? The customer experience. Can you share a little bit about how that customer experience benefits from us really leaning into innovation?
Sure. So I shared earlier about how this all started, and garnering information from the customers, or probably partners is probably a better word. I think that's the word we want to use, not customers. We're partners, right? OCIO is a small organization. The bureaus are large. The bureaus get the appropriations. So the way I thought about this earlier, and I had to Google it, when I would watch my daughter in chorus, She's singing, there's people playing a violin, all of this good stuff. And there's a guy, and I thought it was called the Harry Potter wand. It's not, it's called a baton. So I'm telling you, I Googled it downstairs earlier just to verify what it was. They're an orchestrator. So OCIO, we want to be an orchestrator. We're not here to direct. We don't want to be the governance. We don't want to be the bureaucrats. I think we want to get away from that. We want to be the enabler. We want to empower the organizations to do that, meaning that their voice matters, their requirements matter, and they drive us to find out how to make it work versus the other way around, right? So using human-centered design and capturing those requirements and iteratively along the way, finding out, does this look right? Is this a value add? Helps a lot. So it all goes back to the customer experience, because if there is not a customer experience, it's going to fail on the adoption side of things. And adoption is key if we're trying to scale this around 50,000 partners, users, customers, stakeholders. So building it for them and not what we think it looks like, and not just a capability, but the workflow. They're the closest to knowing how things work to get things out the door, to get the financing, to put out the memos that are needed for the public service. They know how to do that. So us trying to hand jam something that we think looks right because it might have been used isn't the right approach. So customer experience, building it in with human-centered design is how we're approaching this.
Very well said. Yeah. Okay, so you said 50,000 strong.
47,000.
47,000.
I'm
Okay.
trying to make it like holding a fish up, you know?
Yeah, so how do you scale?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Communication, change management, and what we're looking at is, again, building out IPTs to get skin in the game for all the folks that want to actually leverage this. Mm-hmm. If we're looking at putting out AI, and I think the AI side of things is really hot right now, great value. Some organizations are doing it better than the other. Some organizations are doing it faster, crawl, walk, run, right? We want to leverage the folks that are doing it right and lean in on that. Yeah. And what I mean by that is OCIO, again, doesn't have to be the people running this. If we would look at USPTO, they've got a very mature side of things that we want to lean into. So as we talk about shared services and adoption, there's other ways to go about it. And I talked to some of the folks earlier, and we were talking about beg, borrow, steal. Let's adopt what other people are doing that works right. It doesn't have to be our creation. If other people are doing something really well, how do we scale that? How do we turn that into a center of excellence? That's what we're going to call it, a center of excellence for another organization that's doing it. Now, there might be some challenges about adoption or resourcing for them to do it, but why try and recreate the wheel if it's already being done right? And to that point, I don't want us to let perfection get it to cause the issues with the progress. And we have to let things go. So starting with understanding what it is and driving action. And it's okay if it's not right. There's very few things that happen in the federal government, I'm not saying that we're slow, that you cannot take back. So sometimes we're going to have to learn through failure that something's not right. Yeah. But if we never start something and we overplan, we're never going to get anywhere. And I think if we wait for AI and some of the emerging technologies to get to that 90% of whatever we're comfortable with on a risk, we're going to miss out. So we've got to start moving out now. And I think what you've seen with what OSSD has done, kind of put a base to how we're going to do it. Yeah. We use that same methodology, the same way we work and communicate with people, the change management side, the understanding of the audit, all those pieces are put together, and we could replicate that same way of doing things for any type of capability, for any type of API, to integrate the data, all those different pieces. We do the same thing over and over again, and we find out what was right and wrong and continue to build on that.
Oh, that's great. And actually, it's a great segue for us because we've been on this journey for a while, and just to keep things real, right? There's been some speed bumps. There always are. So in the spirit of honesty, transparency, and learning, what are some lessons that you can share with the audience?
Well, now that we're being recorded, it might have a different answer here. Looking at the notes and saying what I can and should say, Vendor engagement. And this goes back to risk management and what we're comfortable doing. I think we've got to do a better job working with industry to understand what requirements are upcoming. So venues like this, how do we share what's happening? How do we put out more RFIs that are out there to help get solutions? And one thing that I shared with Reshma earlier is we get a lot of pitches all the time. And that's fine. However, what is more impactful for our organization is when you come in and you've synthesized the environment and you said, based on what I'm seeing or where we're at for the landscape, here are some of the challenges I see, either now or in the future. Here are some ideas I have or opportunities that can help you scale up to gain adoption, to help with the change management, the communications, or of course, we love resources. How do we reduce resources? So I think that's one piece of it right there. We talked about scaling. So enterprise approach for everything that we do. Maybe it doesn't fit that way. However, I think we should always be cognizant that it might fit. I guess one other area I'd probably think about is let's not race on a solution. Let's understand the requirements first. Well, the last thing we want to do with the budgets that we have is make investments in things that we can't capitalize on. Sunk cost is one of the worst enemies of the federal government. It'll be highlighted, and then you wasted something where you could have actually made progress. So doing the homework, gathering the requirements and making sure it fits and build it out. And I think that's very applicable, especially when we look at AI. Mm-hmm. If I have some of our partners or our customers looking to say, I want AI, or we have the executive orders that have come out, it doesn't mean that we need to rush out to try and create something that fits into AI. There's a lot of use cases out there, and that's why we built processes for the right people to look at it, look at the ROI, look at where the technology readiness level is to find out, is this a good investment, and what is the value? What does it do for the department, and then how does it save the public either money and resources, or how do we get them better transparency into what we're doing or whatever our role might be? Is it going to enhance or the quality of what's happening with USPTO? Are patents going to be done in half the time? Is it going to be done with better quality for things going on? If we were to look at IRS, do we have half the amount of tax returns being returned back, right? So I think we have to look at the outcome of some of these things and what the ROI is to make smart decisions with our dollars. It might not be AI, it could be an RPA. Heck, it could be something that we're already using that we just repurposed from another organization. So I think it's really important that we capture those lessons learned and build that into the process. And again, not to be bureaucratic, not to slow things down, but now we know these things as we build it in. We have a check. Does it meet the enterprise architecture? Is it part of our roadmap? What other investments do we have that are similar in nature that we might be able to leverage? Is the data set correct?
Makes sense, yeah. So thank you, Brian. I know there's some really great insights that you shared. Just in closing, I want you to have the last word. Anything to share with our audience here that we may not have covered?
Sure. I'll share what I try and share with all my teams. I think leadership comes into play here in risk management. Federal government's really large, and with what we're hearing, we have to do a smart job with it. But I think us as leaders, we have to be the enabler for that. We have to empower our people. If we do see types of reductions, we can still get through it. I promise you that. We need to empower our people. We need to grow our capacity. We need to make smarter decisions. So a better understanding of our data, leaders need to be able to take risks. That is our job. We're risk managers. We work for our folks. We need to trust them and give them the tools necessary to make those decisions, to take those risks. And you know what? Sometimes they're going to fail, and that's okay. We've got to be okay with that and get them to move forward. That's how we build new leaders. That's how we're going to do better in the federal government. And then the last piece, again, I can't echo it enough, partnerships with industry. There's a lot of them out there. I think we need to lean into that, how we all work together with our integrators, with the vendor partners, small business, you name it. I think working together, we can do a whole lot of things a lot better than trying to do something in a small shop with a group of people. So a couple thoughts of mine. I appreciate the time. I appreciate everybody coming out. I know it was nasty weather across the DMV, and the fact that people showed up is amazing in itself. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your partnership.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.